Welcome to my channel. Today's painting is a total mistake. I was going to mix some paste in with the paint and do a dimensional hydrangea, and I completely forgot about it. So this is a straightforward hydrangea for beginners. I hope you enjoy the video anyway as I go through the steps of creating this painting. And please like, share and subscribe. That helps my channel grow. I'd very much appreciate it if you could find time to do that. And thank you very much for watching. Today was a bit of a disaster painting wise. I forgot to take a photograph of my palette, but I used titanium white, primary yellow, raw sienna, raw umber, French ultramarine blue, sap green and alizarin crimson. And I always use that same palette. I'm painting in acrylic paint, and I start off with primary yellow and French ultramarine blue, and that sort of mixes to give me a sort of green. And I think with this one I added some alizarin crimson. I added some raw sienna, and then I added a little alizarin crimson afterward. I added titanium white in a crisscross motion, using the same brush. I just rinsed it out, and that is a 3/4 inch wide flat. And I started in the lightest area and moved my way to the darkest. And once I had that paint, the titanium white, thoroughly on top of the original, I used a powder brush, which I get from the dollar store because they're inexpensive and they work great. And I sort of, in a swirling motion, swirled the brush across the titanium white and came up with a sort of quite misty background. The powder brush gives a really soft effect, and I like that, but I'm going to try something a little bit different today. Using a 3/4 inch flat, or actually this one may be a little larger, I'm going to pull in leaf shapes into the background just to give a little texture. These will not show very much at the end of the painting, but they'll be there. They will be a stroke that's pulled into the paint, and some of it may show, most of it probably won't. I just sometimes like to do that. It just all adds to the texture and dimension of the painting. I'm using a rigger and a raw sienna, and I'm going to sketch in where the flowers will be and the stems. Sometimes I do the leaves. In this case I didn't. It's not really important at this stage. I can put the leaves in where I think they'll look best later on in the painting. I've decided to do 5 hydrangea today and show you how they are separated by light and shadow. I usually do 3, but I don't know, I'm in a painting mood, I suppose. I used my liner brush and titanium white to show the outline of the vase. This is an early stage with the vase, just putting it in the picture. And later on I'll go in with some French ultramarine blue and make one side, the shadow side of the vase, bluish to give you that reflected light look. And I always try to remember to use something like either the blue or raw umber to line shadow. In this case I used raw umber to put a line of shadow under the vase to set it on the table. Otherwise the vase will look like it's floating in midair. So it's quite important to remember to do that. Today is definitely jinxed as a painting day because I forgot to turn my camera on for this bit, but I'll show you again. I've decided the light is coming from the right, so from the right there will be light petals, and from the left you'll see a shadow, darker color. And I've also put in some leaf shapes. I don't know what's happening today, but I'm going to struggle forward, and hopefully at the end we'll come out with a painting of 5 hydrangeas in a glass vase. That's the best we can hope for, really, but you do get days like this, so you may as well see what I go through. Very likely you'll have days like this too. Just don't give up. Just keep on keeping on. So here you can see I've got shadow on one side and light on the other, and they are beginning to take shape. Now, I don't do anything fancy at this point. I just use a large round and put on petal shapes. I'm not trying to do florets at this point. I'm just trying to get this painting loaded with petal shapes. For those petals that we don't see, we only see the top of, I do a sideways swipe, and for the other petals I sort of squidge my brush down and try and get that petal shape. You'll get it with a little practice. Nothing comes easy, does it? We always have to practice these things, and I've painted many hydrangea pictures, so I'm pretty good at it now. But just get those petal shapes on. It will all add substance to the final painting, to have all those little higgledy-piggledy shapes in there between the actual florets that we'll paint later. I'm just pushing my brush on there to get those petal shapes. I really don't mind what they look like at this stage. Painting the hydrangea is a fun experience actually, because it's so easy to do, and it's quite a relaxing thing to do, and really all you have to worry about is shadow and light. And I'm using French ultramarine blue for my shadow, and it is a transparent paint, so even if I miss getting that shadow on in the beginning, I can get it on later on. I can just go over it with the French ultramarine blue and it will cast a shadow over what I've painted before. I hope that makes sense to you. Not all paints are transparent. The ones I paint with, raw umber, French ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, are pretty transparent, and I can use those as glazes. I did that with the roses that I painted with paste. I glazed over them to give me the color. I just dab on the dark blue, the French ultramarine blue, where I think the shadow will be, and for the highlight, for the mid-tone I use French ultramarine blue mixed with titanium white, and for the highlight I use straight titanium white. And you can see these are looking very hydrangea-ish already. I'm using titanium white for my highlight, and I'm painting in groups of 4 now, because these little florets usually have 4 petals. You can't really make a mistake when you're painting with acrylics, because you can paint over things, can't you? Oils, you have to sort of scrape off paint, you have to ready your canvas again, and with acrylics, really you don't have to do anything at all. Sometimes want to put a little gesso on there just to even things out a little bit, but that's the most I ever do if I make a mistake or don't care for a particular area of a painting. I'll just repaint it, and quite often I don't bother with the gesso. I just get my colors out and repaint. You can't see because I haven't shown you my palette, but I generally work from a pool of color, and it'll have different shades of color in there. I will have dark blue, pale blue, and white, and different shades of blue, and it's like a big puddle of color, and that's the way I like to work. I might add green to it, I might add yellow to it, and to me, that is the way to go. Some other artists might find that a bit messy, but It's the way I like to paint. I don't often paint all 4 petals of a floret. I usually paint 2 or 3 with a sideways swipe for a petal that we only see the top of, and just pop in the petal here and there, just to get that sort of ruffled flower look. So although this looks quite nice, I feel it all looks rather the same, and I would like to add some cobalt blue to the painting, but I don't have any. So instead I add primary blue, and I forget what the other one is. But anyway, 2 different, and it doesn't really matter, you can add any kind of blue that you want, or any kind of, you could add, and I do add alizarin to it later on, and hydrangeas come in many different colours, and they look very interesting in those different colors. So I wanted to punch this painting up a little by adding some different blues. And if you do this and then, as I have done, got a little too brighter blue on there, I went over that blue with some titanium white, and it sort of just took it down a little bit, just took it down a notch. And but I do think that adding those extra blues gave a little more punch to the painting, made it a little more interesting to look at. The more colour that you can get into those, the more interesting they are. I think I could have even gone further. I did break out a purple and use that, and that helped a little bit too. I really have to look at some photographs of hydrangea and see what I can do to make something a little different to usual, because I almost always end up painting blue hydrangea. I think that's what we grew and that's what I know, and I think I need to do something different. So when I do my hydrangea with paste, I'm going to do a totally different hydrangea, so watch out for that one. I decided to strengthen my stems. They're really only sketched in at the moment, and I use sap green to do that. I like sap green because it's a mid-tone green, and I can make it darker by adding French ultramarine blue, or lighten it up by using titanium white and yellow, primary yellow, and so it works for me. There are other greens that you can buy, and they all have their uses, but I have a set palette that works well for me. I know how to mix those colors to get the different colors that make my paintings mine. Every artist has their favorite colors and uses them in their favorite ways, and this is what I do. For the leaves, I mix sap green with primary yellow, and to lighten it more I add titanium white, but I mix what I feel is a good mid-tone. The sap green on its own I use for shadow. I sometimes mix it with French ultramarine blue for shadow, and I'm only painting a few leaves because the flower takes up most of the painting, but it still needs leaves to make it look balanced, and they sort of grow singly, but I like to group my leaves, so I'm going to put 2 down here on this right hand side where the light is coming from, and I pull the leaf in from the outer edge to the center vein. And if the leaf doesn't look balanced, I'll go in again and paint over it. Don't be afraid when you're using acrylics. You really can do almost anything you want to do with them. When I'm doing reflections in glass, I pull it around in a horizontal stroke because I think that's one of the things that makes glass look glass-like. And I've also put a leaf in there, but when I put a light reflection on top of that, it will push that leaf to the back and it will look like it's on the other side of the vase. At the moment it looks a lot like it's on the front of the vase, but when I get some light in there using titanium white, it will push it to the other side of the vase. I like to paint these flowers. I grew up in the country and we had hydrangea and we had roses, and my next door neighbor grew prize-winning dahlia, and I don't often paint dahlia, but these, hydrangea and roses, are my 2 favorite flowers to paint. Did you see how that line of raw umber sets the vase on the table? It's no longer floating in midair. That's crucial. You have to remember to do that if you're painting a vase or a teapot, whatever you're painting or setting on a table or on a surface. You need to put that shadow underneath, otherwise it just won't look right. So now I'm reinforcing the highlights on the vase to make it look glassy. On the shadow side, I'll add blue to the titanium white to give it that reflected light. And I pull the paint horizontally around the vase to give the vase that roundness that it needs. One little trick I use with a glass vase is to put in the reflection of a window. I just dab in 4 little window panes, and I think that makes the glass look glassier. if when you've finished your hydrangeas, you stand and look at it and find that you're seeing areas that are not very well defined, just go in and put another petal dab in there. Don't try and redo a floret, just dab in a petal, and when you stand back it will appear that you have a hydrangea. They're just a funny thing to paint. You don't need to define them very clearly. You just need those petal shapes higgledy-piggledy throughout the flower, and it will look real. I add alizarin crimson to the tabletop because I felt that it needed to be a little more solid looking, and I pulled the paint through the reflection of the vase so that I used alizarin crimson, did I say that? So that you see the tabletop through the reflection, and I made it go a little higher than the base of the vase just to give you that impression that it's standing on a tabletop, standing on something solid. So this is another disaster area in the video, and I want you to watch this and see how I correct it, because it's so easy to correct when you make a mistake. I can't emphasize that more. Never worry if you're painting in acrylics. You can easily correct anything that you don't like. I believe I was thinking that the alizarin would enhance the flower on the shadow side, and it didn't. It sort of turned a little muddy on me. I should have mixed it more carefully. That would have solved the problem, but I didn't do that, and so then I had to correct the just correct that area. I left it for a little while I thought about what to do, and I got a Q-tip and I'm just dotting in some sort of greenish yellowish paint for the stamens, and I don't dot every single floret. I dot here and there just enough to give you the impression that the flowers have a center. If there's anything a little indefinite and splodgy, put a dot in it and it will take form. It's magic. I don't know how that happens, but it does. Dots can only improve your painting. That's my idea. I took quite a long pause while I figured out what to do with the area that I didn't care for, and I decided to add purple to my palette and see how that worked, and it actually worked very well. I put it on the problem area and then I dotted it around the rest of the painting to sort of make it cohesive, because I don't like to see a colour in one area and then not repeated anywhere else. It sort of draws your eye if you do something like that, and I didn't want to make that focal point in an area that I wasn't too happy with. So I covered up as much of the mistake as I could with the purple and then dotted it around the rest of the flowers. To sum it all up, I'm pleased with the hydrangea flowers. I think they turned out very nicely, and I feel I could have done better with the glass vase and also with the leaves. But on the whole, it's quite nice. I like the red table a lot. I don't know what it is about the red table, but it sort of adds a little punch to the painting. And that's something I've always liked. And also, I like the different blues I managed to get in there. I think they added something to it, their liveliness to it that I like. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please remember to give me a thumbs up. Please like, share and subscribe. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. And next time I will use the paste, I think, to make a thicker paint, which I really enjoy.